Earth sent one silent ship. The galaxy never expected what came next. The galaxy had a name for humans, and it was not a kind one. The other species called them the quiet ones, or sometimes the ones who watch. For almost 40 years, ever since the first alien fleet had found Earth floating in a quiet corner of the galaxy, humanity had done nothing to prove itself. No wars, no great fleets, no loud speeches at the Galactic Council. While other species fought for territory, built massive armies, and argued in the grand halls of the council, humans stayed home. They sent a few ships to trade. They answered questions when asked. They smiled, nodded, and went back to their own small solar system. Many species thought humans were weak. Some thought they were simply slow to grow, like a child species, still learning to walk among giants. The Caldari Empire, the largest and most powerful group in known space, saw humans as nothing more than a curiosity. Their emperor, Vorn Caldari III, once said in a speech that humans were a soft race hiding behind old stories, waiting to be swallowed by history. The room had laughed. Everyone agreed. Humans did not fight. Humans did not argue. Humans did not seem to want anything at all. But there were a few who watched closer. A few who noticed the strange calm about humanity. The way their engineers built quietly. The way their scientists never boasted. The way their soldiers trained without ever showing anyone what they trained for. Among these few was an old alien diplomat named Sael Ithun, a Valkyrian by birth, tall and thin, with skin the color of dusk. Sael had spent 30 years studying humans. He had eaten their food, learned their languages, and read their old books about wars fought on their own world. Wars that had almost destroyed them before they ever reached the stars. He often told younger diplomats the same thing. A species that has already burned itself once does not need to prove it can burn others. It only needs to remember. Nobody listened to him. Not until the trouble began at the edge of Caldari space, in a quiet system called Threna. Threna was a small system with only one habitable world, home to a peaceful species called the Dorith. The Dorith were farmers and builders, gentle people who had never fought a war in their recorded history. They had joined the Galactic Council many years before, hoping for protection and friendship. What they got instead was trouble. Pirates began raiding their cargo ships. Then came stranger visitors, armed vessels flying no flag, striking supply lines, burning small settlements, and vanishing before any council fleet could arrive. The Dorith cried out for help. The council debated. The Caldari Empire, who claimed to protect that region, sent warnings but no real force. Weeks passed. The raids grew worse. It was during one of these long, useless council meetings that the human ambassador, a quiet woman named Elena Cross, stood up and spoke for the first time in months. "Earth will help," she said simply. The room went silent, then filled with soft laughter. The kind of laughter meant to be polite, but was really mockery. A Caldari general, seated near the back, chuckled loudly enough for everyone to hear. "And what will Earth send? A single ship, perhaps, to fight pirates that even our warships cannot catch?" Elena did not smile. She did not argue. She simply nodded. "Yes," she said, "one ship." The room erupted into more laughter. Even Sael Ithun, watching from his seat, felt a flicker of surprise. One ship, against raiders who had already destroyed 3 Dorith patrol vessels and vanished each time without a trace? It seemed foolish. It seemed almost insulting to the Dorith, who needed real help, not a symbolic gesture. But Elena Cross was not finished. "The ship's name is the Quiet Hour," she said. "It will leave within the week. It carries no weapons that any of you would recognize as weapons. It will not ask for backup. It will not ask for permission to act. It will simply go, and it will finish what it starts." The Caldari general leaned back in his chair, still smiling. "A ship with no weapons, sent to fight pirates who have beaten real warships. Ambassador, with respect, this sounds less like help and more like a funeral." "Then you may attend it if you like," Elena said calmly, and sat back down. The meeting ended in confusion. Many species did not know what to make of humanity's decision. Some thought it was arrogance. Some thought it was a mistake, born of not understanding how dangerous the raiders truly were. A few, like Sael Ithun, thought it might be something else entirely, something humans had learned long ago and never bothered to explain to anyone. Back on Earth, far from the noise of the Galactic Council, The Quiet Hour sat in a private dock, away from cameras and public eyes. It did not look like a warship. It was long and smooth, with a dull gray hull that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. It had no visible weapon ports, no large engines glowing with obvious power, no markings except a small emblem near the front, a single circle inside a larger circle, an old human symbol meaning quiet strength, patience before action. Its captain was a man named Daniel Reyes, 42 years old, calm-eyed, with the kind of face that did not show much emotion even in danger. He had spent 20 years in Earth's small but highly trained defense fleet, though almost nobody outside that fleet knew what it truly did. Officially, Earth's military was small, mostly used for patrol and rescue work near the solar system. Unofficially, it had spent decades preparing quietly for a day it hoped would never come, but had also learned, from watching the wider galaxy, that peace without strength was often just another word for waiting to be conquered. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Quiet Hour, looking over his crew. There were only 12 of them, a small number for a mission meant to face pirates and unknown raiders. His second in command, a sharp young woman named Priya Anand, walked up beside him. "Everyone's ready," she said. "Systems are all green. We can leave on your word." Daniel nodded slowly. "Do we know anything more about the raiders?" Priya shook her head. "Not much. No one's gotten a clear scan on them. They hit fast, hit hard, and disappear. The Dorith think it might be some kind of stealth technology, something none of the Council races have seen before." "And Command's orders?" Daniel asked. "Same as always," Priya said. "Protect the Dorith. Avoid open conflict if possible. Use whatever means necessary if not. And remember, we're not there to prove anything to anyone. We're there to help." Daniel allowed himself a small, tired smile. Command always says that. And somehow, we always end up proving something anyway. The ship left Earth 2 days later, slipping quietly out of the solar system, with no fanfare, no parade, no message sent to the Galactic Council, beyond a short note confirming departure. It did not travel with an escort. It did not request an official route through Caldari territory, though it passed near the edge of it. It simply moved, steady and silent, using a drive system that few outside Earth understood. A system built not for speed alone, but for quiet, for stealth, for patience. Days passed. News of the one silent ship spread through certain circles of the galaxy, mostly as a joke. Alien news channels ran short stories mocking the idea, calling it Earth's tiny gesture, or the ship that will do nothing. Betting pools opened among board council staff, wagering on how quickly the ship would fail, retreat, or simply vanish, without ever engaging the raiders at all. Even some humans back on Earth, watching from their homes, felt a small worry in their chests. Not because they doubted their people's skill, but because the galaxy was so much bigger, so much older, and so much more dangerous than anyone truly wanted to admit. Only a handful of people understood what the Quiet Hour truly carried. It was not built like other warships, with rows of cannons and shining armor meant to intimidate. Its greatest weapons were things the galaxy had never bothered to study closely, things humans had built after learning hard lessons from their own violent history. The ship carried tools for silence, stealth systems refined over decades, sensors that could read the emptiness of space better than most races could read a written page, and a crew trained not just to fight, but to think, wait, and strike, only when the moment was exactly right. Aboard the ship, Daniel spent much of the long journey reviewing old reports about the Threnna raids. Something about the pattern bothered him. The attacks were too clean, too precise. Whoever was behind them knew exactly where and when to strike, as if they had access to information that should not have been available to simple pirates. He shared this thought with Priya one evening, as the stars outside blurred past the viewport. "You think someone bigger is behind this?" Priya asked. "I think," Daniel said slowly, "that if this really were random pirates, they would have made mistakes by now. They haven't. Not once. That means either they're incredibly lucky, or someone with real resources is helping them, maybe even directing them." Priya frowned. "The Caldari?" Daniel shook his head. "Too obvious, and too risky for them if discovered. But there are other players in that region who might benefit from a weak, frightened, unprotected Dorith system. Maybe someone wants Threnna's resources. Maybe someone wants to test how the Council reacts to a real crisis. Either way, I think we're heading into something bigger than a simple rescue mission." Priya was quiet for a moment. "Command didn't mention any of this." "Command doesn't know yet," Daniel said. "That's why we're going quiet. If there's a bigger hand behind this, the last thing we want to do is announce ourselves before we understand what we're dealing with." The days passed slowly as the quiet hour crossed the vast distance toward Threnna. The crew trained, rested, and studied every piece of information they had about the raiders' attack patterns, searching for any clue that might reveal a bigger plan. Daniel walked the ship's narrow corridors often, checking on his people, making sure spirits stayed calm despite the growing tension. He knew, better than most, that fear often did more damage than any weapon. A calm crew, focused and patient, was worth more than 100 loud, angry soldiers rushing blindly into battle. Meanwhile, far behind them, the Galactic Council continued its slow, noisy debates, unaware that the silent human ship was already piecing together a mystery far larger than a few pirate raids. Ambassador Elena Cross remained calm through every meeting, ignoring the jokes and the doubtful glances thrown her way. She had faith in her people, faith built not on blind hope, but on decades of quiet preparation that the rest of the galaxy had simply never bothered to notice. Sail Ithun, watching from his usual seat, found himself thinking more and more about that old lesson he had learned from studying humans, the lesson about species who had already burned themselves once. He began quietly gathering his own reports, curious to see what would happen when the quiet hour finally reached Threnna. Something told him the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it had long forgotten how to expect. As the ship crossed the final stretch of space toward the Threnna system, Daniel gathered his crew one last time before arrival. He looked at each of their faces, tired but steady, nervous but ready. "We are not here to prove anything," he said, echoing Command's old words, though this time, his voice carried a quiet weight none of them had heard before. "We are here to protect people who cannot protect themselves. If that means the galaxy learns something about us along the way, so be it. But that is not our goal. Our goal is simple. We finish what we start, and we bring everyone home." The crew nodded, silent and focused. Outside the viewport, the stars of the Threnna system began to appear, distant points of light growing slowly brighter as the quiet hour moved closer to whatever waited for them in the dark. None of them knew yet just how much bigger this mission would become, or how the galaxy's laughter would soon fade into something closer to fear and respect. For now, there was only the quiet hum of the ship's engines, the steady breathing of its small crew, and the endless black of space stretching out before them, hiding secrets that were about to be uncovered. The quiet hour moved forward, silent as its name, carrying with it not just a crew of 12 humans, but the beginning of a story the galaxy would not soon forget. The Threnna system looked peaceful from a distance, a soft blue-green world circling a calm yellow star. But as the quiet hour slipped closer, sensors began picking up signs of damage. Broken satellites drifted in silent orbit. A burned-out cargo station tumbled slowly, its metal frame twisted and scarred. Down on the surface, dark smoke rose from at least 2 farming settlements, thin gray lines against the sky. Daniel Reyes stood at the center of the bridge, watching the growing picture of destruction on the main display. Priya Anand worked quickly at her station, pulling in every scrap of information the ship's sensors could gather. "No sign of the raiders yet," she said. "But there's a Dorith transport ship broadcasting a distress call about 2 hours old. It's still in system, moving slow, damaged." "Location?" Daniel asked. "Near the third moon. If the raiders are still around, that's probably where they'll strike next." Daniel nodded. "Take us there. Quiet approach. No active scans. No broadcasts. Let's see what we're dealing with before we let anyone know we're here." The quiet hour turned smoothly, its engines barely making a sound even inside the ship itself. Outside, in the vacuum of space, it moved like a shadow, invisible to normal sensors, its hull built from special materials that soaked up radar waves and heat signatures alike. To anyone watching from a distance, the ship would have looked like nothing more than empty space. They found the Dorith transport 20 minutes later, drifting near the moon, one engine dead, hull scorched along its side. Through the ship's passive sensors, Daniel could see life signs aboard, weak but present. Families, most likely. Farmers trying to escape the chaos on the surface. "Contact them," Daniel said, quietly. "Let them know help has arrived. but keep our position hidden from anyone else listening." Priya opened a narrow, encrypted channel. A frightened voice answered almost immediately, speaking in broken galactic common. "Please, please, we have children aboard. Our engine is dead. The raiders, they said they would come back." "You're safe now," Priya said gently. "This is the Earth ship Quiet Hour. We're going to get you somewhere safe. Please stay calm and follow our instructions." There was a pause, then a small, disbelieving laugh mixed with relief. The human ship? We heard rumors, but no one believed. Thank you. Thank you." Daniel allowed himself only a brief moment of relief before turning back to the tactical display. "Priya, get a shuttle ready to move those families to the surface, somewhere safe, away from the settlements that are burning. I want eyes on the rest of the system. If the raiders are still nearby, I want to know before they know about us." It took almost an hour to move the Dorith family safely toward a quiet, undamaged coastal town on the planet's surface, far from the burning farms. Daniel insisted on doing it without revealing the ship's true capabilities. No dramatic rescue, no flashy display of power. Just quiet, careful work, the kind that left no trace behind, except grateful, relieved passengers. It was while returning from this quiet mission that the ship's sensors finally caught something unusual. A strange energy fluctuation near the far side of the planet, hidden behind one of Threna's smaller moons. "There," Priya said, pointing to a faint reading on the screen. "It's not much, but it wasn't there 30 seconds ago." Daniel studied the data closely. Cloaking field, a good one, but not perfect. Something's hiding out there. The raiders? Maybe. Let's find out. The Quiet Hour moved with careful precision, drifting through the shadow of the moon, engines running at their lowest possible output. As they came around the far side, the strange energy signature grew stronger, resolving slowly into the outline of several ships, 6 of them, sleek and dark, clustered together, as if preparing for another strike. "I'm reading weapon charge buildup," Priya said quietly. "They're getting ready to move." Daniel studied the enemy ships carefully. They were unlike anything in the standard Galactic Council database. Smooth, angular designs with no visible markings, no flags, no identifying symbols of any kind. Whoever built these ships had clearly gone to great lengths to remain anonymous. "Options?" Priya asked. Daniel thought for a moment. "If we attack now, we risk them scattering before we learn who's really behind this. I want answers, not just a quick fight." He turned to his tactical officer, a quiet, focused man named Marcus Webb. "Marcus, can we get a full sensor lock without giving away our position?" Marcus worked quickly. "Give me 2 minutes." While Marcus worked, Daniel considered their next move carefully. The Quiet Hour was not built for large battles against 6 well-armed ships. Its strength lay elsewhere, in patience, precision, and a set of tools the wider galaxy had never seen humans use in open combat. Daniel had a plan already forming, one that relied on catching the enemy completely by surprise, using methods no one in this part of space would expect. "Marcus, status?" "Lock complete," Marcus said. "I've got full scans on all 6 ships, their weapon systems, their engine cores, everything. I'm also picking up an encrypted communication array on the lead ship, stronger than what you'd expect from simple pirates." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "That confirms it. Someone bigger is behind this." Priya looked over at him. "What's the plan?" "We're not here to destroy them," Daniel said. "We're here to stop them, and to find out who's really pulling the strings. I want to disable their engines and weapons, without killing anyone, if we can help it. And I want that communication array intact. If we can access it, we might learn exactly who sent them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Disable 6 ships without firing a single shot they can trace? That's ambitious." Daniel allowed a small, confident smile. "That's why we brought the right tools." What followed was unlike any battle the Threna system had ever seen. The Quiet Hour did not fire visible weapons. Instead, it released a series of small, nearly invisible probes, each one drifting silently toward the enemy ships, using the natural background radiation of space to hide its approach. Once close enough, the probes attached themselves quietly to the enemy hulls, working their way into exposed systems, disrupting engine cores, with precise, targeted energy pulses that caused no explosions, no fire, no visible damage from the outside. Aboard the lead raider ship, Chaos broke out as engines flickered and died one by one, weapon systems locking up without warning, internal lights flashing with confused error messages. The raider crews, trained for quick, brutal strikes against unarmed civilian ships, found themselves suddenly powerless, drifting helplessly in space with no idea what had happened or who had done it. All 6 ships disabled, Marcus reported, his voice tight with quiet amazement. No weapons fired, no debris. No explosions. Priya stared at the screen, her expression somewhere between shock and admiration. They don't even know we're here. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on the tactical display. Good. Let's keep it that way a little longer. Marcus, patch us into their communication array. I want to hear who they're reporting to. It took several tense minutes of careful, silent work before Marcus managed to breach the enemy's encrypted systems. Voices crackled through the speakers, panicked and confused, speaking in a language the ship's translator struggled to fully process at first. Systems failing, no visible attacker, requesting emergency evac. Then, cutting through the panic, a calmer, colder voice, clearly a commanding officer aboard the lead ship. Contact the Silent Hand. Tell them the operation has failed. Tell them Threnna is compromised. Daniel's eyes sharpened at the name. The Silent Hand, he repeated quietly. Priya, do we have anything on that name in our databases? Priya searched quickly, her fingers moving fast across her console. After a moment, she looked up, her face pale. Nothing official. But there are old rumors, mentioned briefly in some council intelligence reports from years ago. A secretive group operating outside council law, believed to deal in smuggling, sabotage, and destabilizing smaller, vulnerable systems for profit or influence. No one's ever confirmed they're real. Daniel frowned, his mind already racing ahead. Well, it looks like we just found some very real proof. Marcus looked over, his expression serious. Orders, Captain? Daniel took a slow breath, weighing the situation carefully. 6 enemy ships now drifted helplessly nearby, their crews frightened and confused, unaware of what had truly happened. Somewhere out there, a larger, more dangerous organization now knew their operation at Threnna had failed, and the Quiet Hour had just uncovered the very first thread of a much larger, much more dangerous mystery. We board them, Daniel said finally. Carefully. No unnecessary violence. We secure their crews, gather every piece of intelligence we can find, and we make sure the Dorith government understands exactly what happened here. Then we report everything back to command, and to the council, whether they want to hear it or not. The boarding operation went smoothly, almost eerily so. The raider crews, already terrified and confused by their sudden, silent defeat, offered little resistance once Daniel's small team moved in, calm and professional, treating even hostile prisoners with careful, controlled respect. It was a stark contrast to the raiders' own violent methods, and several of the captured crew members later admitted, quietly and nervously, that they had expected far worse treatment from the mysterious human ship. By the time the operation ended, the Quiet Hour had gathered enough evidence to expose the beginnings of a much larger conspiracy, one that stretched far beyond simple pirate raids, reaching into the shadows of galactic politics itself. As Daniel prepared his full report for command, he found himself thinking back to what he had told his crew before their arrival. We are not here to prove anything. We are here to protect people who cannot protect themselves. He had meant every word, but he also knew, watching the growing evidence pile up on his screen, that whether they intended it or not, the galaxy was about to start paying very close attention to humanity indeed. Back on the Dorith homeworld, word of the mysterious rescue spread quickly. Farmers who had lost everything spoke in hushed, grateful voices about a silent gray ship that had appeared from nowhere, saved their families, and vanished into the dark without ever asking for thanks. Within days, the story reached the wider Galactic Council, twisted and exaggerated with each retelling, until even the doubters who had laughed at Elena Cross's simple declaration, "Earth will help, one ship," found themselves suddenly, quietly, unsure of what to believe anymore. Sayalithun, watching the reports come in from his quiet office, allowed himself a small, knowing smile. The lesson he had tried to teach for 30 years was finally beginning to make sense to those around him. Humans had not sent one ship because they lacked strength. They had sent one ship because, for humans, one ship, properly built, properly crewed, properly prepared, was more than enough. Far away, aboard the quiet hour, Daniel Reyes stood quietly at the viewport, watching the stars of the Threna system stretch out before him. The mission here was far from over. Somewhere out there, the silent hand was still watching, still planning, and now, for the first time, afraid of what humanity might do next. He had no way of knowing yet just how deep this conspiracy truly ran, or how much bigger this fight was about to become. But as he looked out at the silent stars, Daniel felt a quiet, steady certainty settle over him. The same certainty that had carried humanity through its own darkest days, long before the galaxy had ever noticed them at all. Whatever came next, Earth would be ready. News of Threna spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within a week, every major species on the Galactic Council had heard some version of the story, though the details grew stranger and more exaggerated with each telling. Some said the human ship had appeared out of thin air. Others claimed it had destroyed the raiders, using weapons no one had ever seen before. A few, more sober voices, simply reported the facts, as best they could confirm them. 6 unmarked ships, disabled without a single shot fired, their crews captured unharmed, and clear evidence pointing to a secretive organization called the Silent Hand, operating far beyond Council law. At the Galactic Council chambers, the mood had shifted from mockery to something closer to nervous curiosity. Ambassador Elena Cross found herself facing far more questions than usual, though this time the tone had changed. Diplomats who had laughed only weeks before now leaned forward in their seats, listening carefully whenever she spoke. Ambassador Cross, said a representative from the Valkyrian delegation, his tone far more respectful than before. Can you confirm the reports coming out of Threna, that your single ship disabled 6 armed vessels without any of them detecting an attack? Elena kept her expression calm, though inside she felt a small flicker of quiet satisfaction. I can confirm that our ship completed its mission successfully, protected the Doroth colonies, and gathered valuable intelligence regarding a threat that concerns the entire Council, not just Earth. And this, Silent Hand? Another delegate asked, worry clear in his voice. Do you have proof this organization truly exists? We have testimony from captured raiders, recovered communication logs, and physical evidence from the disabled ships, Elena said. We will be sharing all of it with the Council's Security Committee. This is not a matter Earth intends to handle alone. It concerns every species represented in this room. The Kaldari representative, a stern, broad-shouldered man named Doran Vell, remained silent through most of the meeting, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a careful, guarded tone. The Kaldari Empire takes any threat to Council stability seriously. We will review the evidence Earth provides. He paused, glancing briefly at Elena. Though I admit, we did not expect such results from a single, unarmed vessel. The Quiet Hour is not unarmed, Elena said simply. It simply does not use weapons the way you might expect. The room fell quiet at that, murmurs spreading among the gathered delegates. Sayel Ithun, seated near the back as always, watched the exchange with quiet interest, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. For 30 years, he had studied humans, trying to explain to anyone who would listen that their quiet nature hid something far more complex than the galaxy assumed. Now, finally, the rest of the Council was beginning to understand what he had already known. Meanwhile, far from the noise of Council politics, the Quiet Hour remained in the Threna system, continuing its careful work. Daniel Reyes spent long hours reviewing the intelligence gathered from the captured raider ships, searching for any further clues about the Silent Hand's true nature and purpose. Marcus Webb worked alongside him, slowly decrypting layers of hidden data buried within the raiders' communication systems. I think I found something, Marcus said one evening, calling Daniel over to his console. Buried deep in their comm logs, coordinates, repeated several times, always encrypted differently than the rest of their messages. Daniel studied the data closely. Coordinates to where? Marcus pulled up a star map, highlighting a distant, mostly uncharted region of space, near the edge of Kaldari territory. Somewhere out here. It's not marked on any official Council maps. Whatever it is, someone's gone to great lengths to keep it hidden. Priya, standing nearby, crossed her arms thoughtfully. You think that's where the Silent Hand is based? Maybe, Daniel said. Or maybe it's just another piece of their network. Either way, it's worth investigating. He turned to Marcus. Keep working on the rest of that data. I want to know everything we can learn before we make our next move." As the days passed, the Quiet Hours crew continued their careful investigation, balancing the delicate work of intelligence gathering with the ongoing task of helping the Doroth rebuild their damaged settlements. Daniel made sure his people spent time on the surface as well, helping repair damaged farms, rebuild homes, and comfort families who had lost loved ones in the raids. It was slow, quiet work, the kind that rarely made headlines, but Daniel understood its importance. Trust, once earned, was worth more than any show of strength. One evening, as Daniel walked through one of the rebuilt Doroth settlements, he was approached by an elderly Doroth farmer named Tessel, one of the survivors from the earlier attacks. Tessel's weathered face carried the marks of a hard life, but his eyes held a quiet gratitude as he looked at Daniel. "You did not have to come," Tessel said slowly, his galactic calm careful and deliberate. "Your people have no history with mine. No old alliance, no reason to risk your lives for us." Daniel considered his words carefully before responding. "Where I come from, we learned a long time ago that waiting for someone else to help often means no one comes at all. We decided a long time ago that if we ever had the power to help, we would use it, whether or not anyone owed us anything." Tessel studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly, a small, grateful smile crossing his lined face. "Then perhaps the stories about your people are not exaggerations after all." Daniel returned the smile, though his thoughts remained focused on the larger mystery still unfolding. As much as he wanted to stay and continue helping the Doroth rebuild, he knew the greater threat still loomed, hidden somewhere in the depths of unexplored space. Back aboard the ship, Marcus finally cracked the last layer of encryption hiding within the raiders' communication logs. What he found sent a chill through the entire bridge crew. The Silent Hand was not simply a group of pirates or smugglers, as the old council rumors had suggested. The decrypted files revealed a far larger, more organized network, stretching across multiple systems, with connections to corrupt officials within several council governments, including, troublingly, hints of influence reaching into the lower ranks of the Caldari military itself. "This isn't a simple criminal organization," Marcus said grimly, staring at the data. "This looks like a shadow network, deliberately working to destabilize smaller, vulnerable systems, probably to gain control over resources, trade routes, or political influence, without ever being directly connected to any single government." Daniel studied the evidence carefully, his expression hardening. If this is as big as it looks, exposing it could shake the entire council. Powerful people are going to want this information buried, not revealed. Priya frowned. "Which means whoever's behind this might come after us directly, once they realize how much we know." "Probably already have those orders in motion," Daniel said quietly. "We need to move carefully from here. Full report to command, immediately. And I want increased security protocols across the ship. If the Silent Hand realizes we're closing in on them, they won't hesitate to try and silence us." As if summoned by his words, an alert suddenly flashed across the tactical display. Marcus's fingers moved quickly across his console, his expression tightening. "Captain, we've got incoming ships. 3 of them, approaching fast from the outer system. Caldari military design, but..." He paused, studying the readings more closely. "Their transponder codes aren't matching any registered Caldari fleet units." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Unregistered Caldari ships, that fits the pattern." Priya moved quickly to her station, pulling up a full scan of the approaching vessels. "They're not slowing down. Weapons charging." Daniel took a slow breath, his mind racing through the situation calmly and carefully, just as he had been trained. The galaxy had already begun to notice the Quiet Hours' quiet strength. Now, it seemed, someone powerful enough to command hidden Caldari resources wanted that strength silenced before it could expose them further. "All hands, brace for potential engagement," Daniel said calmly over the ship's internal comm. "Marcus, keep working on decrypting whatever else we can pull from that data. Priya, ready defensive systems, but hold fire until I give the order. Let's see what they want first." The 3 unmarked Caldari design ships closed in rapidly, their weapon systems fully charged, clearly prepared for a direct confrontation. As they came within communication range, a cold, mechanically altered voice crackled through the Quiet Hours comm system, deliberately disguised to hide the speaker's true identity. "Human vessel Quiet Hour. You possess information that does not belong to you. Surrender your data logs immediately. and your crew will be allowed to leave unharmed." Daniel exchanged a brief glance with Priya, before responding calmly, his voice steady and unshaken. "This is Captain Daniel Reyes, of the Earth vessel Quiet Hour. We have gathered evidence of criminal activity directly threatening Council security. That evidence will be delivered to the proper authorities. We have no intention of surrendering anything to an unmarked, unregistered vessel making threats against a Council-recognized diplomatic mission." There was a brief pause, then the cold voice returned, colder still. "Then you leave us no choice." The three enemy ships surged forward, weapons firing bright bursts of energy toward the Quiet Hour's position. Daniel's voice rang out sharply across the bridge. "Evasive pattern Delta. Full stealth systems online, now." The Quiet Hour shifted instantly, its advanced systems working exactly as designed, bending and scattering incoming sensor signals, making the ship's true position far harder to pinpoint, even as enemy weapons fire streaked past. Daniel gripped the edge of his command console tightly, his calm expression hiding the intense focus running through his mind. Whatever the Silent Hand truly was, however deep its influence ran within the galaxy's most powerful empire, it was clear now that Earth's single, silent ship had struck a nerve deep enough to provoke direct, violent retaliation. The Quiet Hour banked sharply, engines flaring with a burst of controlled power, as Daniel began directing his crew through a series of careful, practiced maneuvers, drawing on years of quiet preparation that the wider galaxy had never witnessed. This was no longer simply about rescuing a struggling colony or gathering intelligence. This was the beginning of a much larger confrontation, one that would soon force the entire galaxy to reconsider everything it thought it understood about the quiet, unassuming species called humanity. As weapons fire lit up the dark space around them, Daniel allowed himself one brief, steady thought amid the chaos. The galaxy had asked what Earth would send to help a struggling colony. Now, it was about to learn exactly what that single, silent ship was truly capable of. The three unmarked ships pressed their attack hard, weapons fire lighting up the dark space around the Quiet Hour in bright, dangerous bursts. Daniel Reyes stood firm at the center of the bridge, his eyes moving quickly across the tactical display, tracking every movement, every shift in the enemy's formation. "They're coordinating well," Priya said, her voice tense but controlled. "This isn't some ragtag pirate crew. These are trained military pilots." "Agreed," Daniel said, "which means the Silent Hand has real resources inside the Caldari military, not just stolen ships." He turned toward Marcus. "Status on our stealth systems?" "Holding steady," Marcus reported. "They're firing blind, guessing at our position, based on old sensor data. But if we take a direct hit, or if they get lucky with a wide spread, they could still hit us." Daniel nodded slowly, his mind working through the situation with careful precision. The Quiet Hour was not built for a prolonged, direct battle against three well-armed military ships. Its greatest strength lay in stealth, patience, and precision strikes, not open combat. But retreating now would mean losing the valuable evidence they had gathered, evidence that could expose the Silent Hand's dangerous network before it caused even more damage across the galaxy. "We can't outgun them in a straight fight," Daniel said. "But we don't have to. Priya, feed me a full readout on their engine and weapon systems. Marcus, I want you working on a way to trace their command signal back to its source, while we keep them busy." "Copy that," Marcus said, already moving quickly through his console. The Quiet Hour banked sharply, its engines flaring in a tight, controlled burst, as Daniel guided the ship through a series of complex evasive maneuvers, weaving between incoming weapons fire, while keeping their true position hidden behind layers of scattered sensor noise. It was a delicate, dangerous dance, one that required absolute precision from every member of the crew. "Enemy Ship 2 is falling out of formation," Priya reported. "Looks like they're trying to flank us from the left." "Let them," Daniel said calmly. "Marcus, prepare another set of stealth probes. Same tactic as Threnna, but faster this time. I want their engines offline before they even realize what's happening." Marcus worked quickly, launching a fresh set of small, nearly invisible probes toward the flanking enemy ship. Within moments, the probes attached themselves to the enemy hull, working their way into critical systems, just as they had done before. The second enemy ship's engines flickered violently, then died completely, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. "Enemy Ship 2 disabled," Marcus confirmed, his voice carrying a note of quiet satisfaction. But the remaining two ships adjusted quickly, clearly more prepared this time for the same tactic. Their weapons fire grew more erratic, spreading wide across a larger area of space, clearly hoping to hit the quiet hour through sheer probability rather than precise targeting. They've adapted, Priya warned. Widespread fire pattern. If we hold our current position too long, they might get lucky. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. Then we don't hold still. Full evasive maneuvers. Continuous pattern shift. Marcus, how much longer until you can trace their command signal? Almost there, Marcus said, sweat beading on his forehead as his fingers moved rapidly across his console. Just need a few more seconds of clean data. The ship shuddered slightly as a stray burst of enemy fire grazed dangerously close to their hull, close enough to rattle equipment across the bridge. Daniel steadied himself against his console, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. Direct hit narrowly missed, Priya reported, her voice tight. Shields holding. But that was close. Marcus, we're running out of time, Daniel said firmly. Got it. Marcus called out suddenly. I've traced the command signal. It's not coming from the ships themselves. It's being relayed from a hidden station, deep within an unregistered asteroid field, near the edge of Caldari territory. Same coordinates we found buried in the Raiders' logs from Threnna. Daniel felt a surge of grim satisfaction, despite the ongoing danger. So that's where the silent hand is really hiding. Captain, Priya interrupted urgently. The last two ships are moving to a full frontal assault pattern. Looks like they're done playing it safe. Daniel studied the display carefully. A direct frontal assault meant the enemy pilots were desperate, likely realizing their earlier tactics had failed, and now hoping sheer aggression might succeed where careful maneuvering had not. It was a dangerous shift, but also, Daniel realized quickly, an opportunity. They're focused entirely on offense now, he said. Predictable, aggressive, direct. Priya, prepare a tight defensive pattern. Marcus, get ready to launch our remaining stealth probes the moment I give the order. We're going to let them commit fully to their attack, then take them both out at once. The two remaining enemy ships surged forward in a tight, aggressive formation, weapons blazing brightly as they closed the distance rapidly. Daniel watched calmly, timing the moment carefully, waiting until the enemy ships were fully committed to their attack run, their own defensive systems focused entirely on offense rather than protection. Now, Daniel called out sharply. Marcus launched the remaining stealth probes instantly, sending them speeding toward the two charging enemy ships. Within seconds, both vessels' systems flickered violently, engines and weapons failing simultaneously, as the probes disrupted their critical systems with practiced precision. The two ships, moments before charging aggressively toward the quiet hour, suddenly went dark and silent, drifting helplessly alongside their already disabled companion. A tense silence settled across the bridge as the immediate danger passed. Priya let out a slow, relieved breath, glancing toward Daniel with a small, tired smile. All three ships disabled. No casualties on our side. Daniel allowed himself a brief moment to relax, his shoulders loosening slightly. Good work, everyone. Marcus, lock onto that hidden station's coordinates. I want a full report ready for command immediately. We've found the heart of this operation. As the crew worked quickly to secure the disabled enemy ships and finalize their intelligence report, Daniel found himself staring thoughtfully at the star map, focused on the hidden asteroid station, now marked clearly on their display. The Silent Hand's true base of operations, hidden deep within unregistered territory, protected by unmarked military-grade ships, and shadowy connections reaching into the highest levels of Caldari power. This isn't something we can handle alone, Daniel said finally, turning to address his crew. Not without risking real consequences for the entire council. Priya, prepare our full report, including everything Marcus uncovered. I want this sent directly to command, and copied to Ambassador Cross for immediate presentation to the Galactic Council. You think the Council will actually act on this? Priya asked, her voice carrying a note of doubt, especially with Caldari connections involved. Daniel considered the question carefully. Maybe not right away. Powerful people rarely want the truth exposed quickly, especially when it implicates their own. But the evidence is solid, and now it can't simply be dismissed as rumor or exaggeration. Sometimes, the first step toward real change is simply making sure the truth can no longer be ignored. While the Quiet Hour's crew worked to finalize their report, similar concerns were already spreading through the Galactic Council itself. Word of the sudden attack against the Earth vessel spread quickly, especially once it became clear the attacking ships carried unregistered Caldari military technology. Ambassador Elena Cross found herself once again standing before the full council, this time delivering evidence far more serious than anything discussed before. "The attack against our vessel," Elena said calmly, her voice carrying clearly across the tense chamber, "originated from ships using unregistered Caldari military technology, directly linked to the same organization responsible for the Threnna raids. We have traced their operations to a hidden base within unregistered territory near Caldari space." The chamber erupted into heated discussion, delegates from multiple species speaking rapidly among themselves, clearly disturbed by the implications of Elena's report. Doran Vell, the Caldari representative, rose slowly to his feet, his expression carefully controlled despite the obvious tension in the room. "These are serious accusations, Ambassador," he said carefully. "The Caldari Empire does not tolerate rogue elements operating under our technology or our name. We will launch a full investigation immediately. We would welcome the Council's full cooperation in that investigation," Elena replied evenly. "Given the evidence already gathered, I believe swift, transparent action would serve everyone's interests, including the Caldari Empire's own reputation." Sail Ithun, watching quietly from his usual seat, felt a familiar mixture of concern and cautious hope settle over him. The truth was finally coming to light, though he understood well enough that powerful organizations like the Silent Hand rarely disappeared quietly, especially once exposed. If anything, the coming days would likely grow far more dangerous, as those responsible scrambled to protect themselves from the consequences of their actions. Back aboard the Quiet Hour, Daniel received word from command shortly after sending his report. The message was brief but clear. Additional support ships were being dispatched immediately, alongside a formal request for joint council action against the newly confirmed Silent Hand base. For the first time since their mission began, the Quiet Hour would not be operating entirely alone. Daniel allowed himself a small, satisfied smile as he read the message. "Looks like the galaxy's finally starting to pay attention." Priya glanced over, her expression thoughtful. "Is that a good thing?" Daniel considered the question carefully before answering. "It's necessary, either way. But yes, I think it's a good thing. The Silent Hand has been operating in the shadows for who knows how long, hurting innocent people, manipulating governments, all without anyone truly understanding the danger it posed. If exposing that means the galaxy finally starts paying closer attention to threats like this, then maybe some good will come out of everything we've faced so far." As new orders came through, directing the Quiet Hour to hold position and await reinforcement before moving against the hidden Silent Hand base, Daniel found himself looking out at the quiet stars once more, reflecting on how far this mission had already taken them. What had begun as a simple rescue operation to help a struggling colony had grown into something far larger, exposing a hidden threat capable of destabilizing the entire galaxy. He knew, deep down, that the true confrontation still lay ahead. The Silent Hand would not simply surrender its hidden base without a fight, especially now that its operations had been exposed so publicly. Whatever came next would likely be the greatest test yet, not just for the Quiet Hour's small, dedicated crew, but for humanity's quiet, careful approach to strength itself. Daniel took a slow, steady breath, watching the stars stretch endlessly before him. Whatever challenges awaited them at that hidden asteroid base, he felt confident, now more than ever, that Earth's quiet strength would prove more than capable of meeting them head-on. 3 days after the battle near Threnna, a small combined fleet gathered quietly at the edge of Caldari territory, far from the busy trade routes and prying eyes of the wider galaxy. It was a strange mix of ships, 2 Earth support vessels that had traveled quickly from the solar system, a Dorith escort ship offering what little defense their peaceful people could provide, and, most surprising of all, a single Caldari cruiser sent by Doran Vell himself, a gesture meant to show the Empire's willingness to help clean up the mess exposed within its own territory. Daniel Reyes stood on the bridge of the Quiet Hour, watching the newly arrived ships take formation around them. It was a strange feeling after weeks of operating alone, quiet and unseen. Now, for the first time, they would move forward together, openly, toward the hidden Silent Hand base, buried deep within the unregistered asteroid field. "Command's final orders just came through," Priya said, reading from her console. "We're to lead the approach, using our stealth systems to scout the base before the rest of the fleet moves in. Command wants this handled carefully. No unnecessary destruction, and if possible, they want the base's leadership captured alive for questioning." Daniel nodded slowly. "Makes sense. Whoever's really running the Silent Hand likely has connections we haven't uncovered yet. Alive, they can answer questions. Dead, they're just another mystery buried in the dark." Marcus looked up from his console, his expression serious. "I've been studying the sensor data we gathered from the disabled ships and the coordinates from Threna. The base itself is heavily fortified, built directly into a large asteroid, with layered defense systems, and what looks like a small fleet stationed nearby for protection." "How small?" Priya asked. 10 ships, at least," Marcus said. "Maybe more hidden inside the asteroid itself." Daniel studied the data carefully, weighing their options. 10 armed ships defending a fortified base was no small challenge, even with the support fleet now joining them. But retreating now, after everything they had uncovered, was not an option either. "We stick to the plan," Daniel said finally. "Quiet Hour moves in first, using full stealth capability to scout their defenses and disable as many ships as possible before the rest of the fleet arrives. If we can weaken their defenses quietly, we reduce the risk for everyone else." The Quiet Hour moved forward alone, slipping quietly through the scattered asteroids, its advanced stealth systems working exactly as designed to hide its approach from the base's sensors. As they drew closer, the hidden Silent Hand base came slowly into view. A massive structure built directly into the rock of a large, irregularly shaped asteroid, its dark metal surface blending almost perfectly with the surrounding stone. "I'm reading exactly 10 ships stationed around the base perimeter," Marcus reported quietly. "All armed, all on standard patrol patterns. No indication they've detected us yet." Daniel studied the tactical display carefully, his mind already working through the best approach. Same tactic as before. Quiet, precise, one ship at a time. "Marcus, prepare the stealth probes. Priya, keep a close eye on their patrol patterns. I want to know the moment anything changes." The Quiet Hour began its careful, patient work, drifting silently between the scattered asteroids, launching small stealth probes toward each patrolling enemy ship in turn. One by one, engines flickered and died, weapon systems locked up, and enemy ships drifted helplessly into the dark, their crews confused and increasingly alarmed by the mysterious, silent attacks striking them without warning. By the time the base's defenders finally realized something was seriously wrong, 7 of their 10 ships had already been disabled. Alarms began blaring across the remaining 3 vessels, their crews scrambling to locate the invisible attacker striking so precisely through their defenses. "They're onto us," Priya warned, her voice tense. "The remaining 3 ships are moving into defensive formation around the base entrance." Daniel nodded calmly. "Time to bring in the rest of the fleet. Marcus, signal command. Let them know we're clear to move in." Within minutes, the rest of the combined fleet arrived, moving swiftly to secure the disabled ships and surround the remaining defenders. Faced with overwhelming numbers and the sudden, terrifying knowledge that their earlier defenses had already been silently defeated, the base's remaining ships quickly surrendered, rather than risk further confrontation. With the perimeter secured, Daniel led a small boarding team directly into the heart of the asteroid base itself, accompanied by a handful of Caldari security officers sent to assist with the operation. A gesture that carried real significance given the circumstances. As they moved carefully through the base's dark, narrow corridors, they found evidence everywhere of the Silent Hand's true scope: stolen resources, records of past raids, and hidden communications linking the organization to corrupt officials across multiple systems. They found the base's leader in a heavily fortified command room deep within the asteroid, a tall, cold-eyed Caldari officer named Halvor Den, whose true identity had been carefully hidden behind the organization's secretive operations for years. Den offered no resistance once his remaining defenses collapsed, standing calmly amid the wreckage of his failed operation as Daniel's team moved in to secure him. "Clever," Den said quietly, watching Daniel approach. "I admit, I did not expect a single ship to unravel everything so quickly." Daniel studied him carefully. "You underestimated us. Everyone does at first." Den allowed a small, bitter smile. "Perhaps. Though I wonder, Captain, if the rest of the galaxy truly understands what they've invited, by dismissing your people so easily for so long. Daniel said nothing further, simply nodding to his team to secure the prisoner. Whatever answers Den held about the Silent Hand's deeper connections would come later, through proper questioning and careful investigation. For now, the immediate threat had been contained. News of the Silent Hand's defeat spread rapidly across the galaxy in the days that followed, carried through official council channels this time, rather than exaggerated rumors. The evidence gathered from the hidden base confirmed everything the Quiet Hour had uncovered: corrupt officials, hidden funding, and a deliberate campaign to destabilize smaller, vulnerable systems for profit and influence. Several high-ranking officials across multiple governments, including within the Caldari Empire itself, faced immediate investigation as a result. At the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Elena Cross stood once more before the full assembly, delivering her final report on the matter. The room, once filled with polite mockery and doubtful glances, now listened with careful, genuine respect. The threat posed by the Silent Hand has been contained, Elena said clearly, thanks to the combined efforts of Earth, the Dorith, and the Caldari Empire's own cooperation in exposing corruption within their ranks. We hope this marks the beginning of stronger cooperation across the Council, built on transparency and mutual respect, rather than assumption and doubt. Doranvel rose slowly to address the chamber, his expression carrying a rare note of humility. The Caldari Empire acknowledges the corruption exposed within our own ranks, and we thank Earth for its role in uncovering it, despite the doubts many of us held toward their methods. He paused, glancing briefly toward Elena. It seems we underestimated what quiet strength truly means. The chamber remained silent for a long moment, before soft applause slowly spread across the room, a stark contrast to the mocking laughter that had greeted Elena's original declaration weeks before. Sael Ithun, watching quietly from his usual seat, allowed himself a broad, satisfied smile. 30 years of careful study, finally understood by those who had once dismissed his warnings so easily. Back at Threna, the Dorith settlements continued their slow recovery, aided by ongoing support from both Earth and the wider Council, now fully aware of the true danger their small system had faced. Tessel, the elderly farmer who had spoken with Daniel weeks before, stood among his rebuilt fields, watching the sky with a quiet, grateful smile, as news of the Silent Hand's defeat spread through his community. Aboard the Quiet Hour, preparing finally for their journey home, Daniel gathered his small crew one last time. 12 people who had, together, quietly changed how the entire galaxy viewed humanity. Not through loud declarations or overwhelming force, but through careful patience, quiet strength, and an unwavering commitment to protecting those who could not protect themselves. "We didn't come here to prove anything," Daniel said, echoing the words he had spoken so many times throughout their long mission. "But I think, whether we intended it or not, we've shown the galaxy something important about who we are." He paused, glancing around at his tired but proud crew. "I'm proud of every one of you. Let's go home." As the Quiet Hour turned slowly, engines humming softly, as it prepared for the long journey back toward Earth, Daniel took one last look at the stars of the Threna system, now calm and peaceful once more. Somewhere far behind them, the wider galaxy continued its slow, careful process of understanding just how deeply it had misjudged the quiet, unassuming species called humanity. Word of Earth's silent ship would continue to spread for years afterward, told and retold across countless worlds, growing into legend, even as the true story remained, at its heart, remarkably simple. Earth had sent one ship, silent and unassuming, into a galaxy that expected little from it, and in doing so, without ever seeking glory or recognition, that single ship had proven something the galaxy would not soon forget, that true strength often speaks softest, and that the quietest among us are sometimes capable of the loudest change. As the Quiet Hour disappeared once more into the vast darkness of space, carrying its tired but satisfied crew back toward home, the galaxy watched, finally understanding what it had never expected to find hidden within humanity's quiet, patient heart. The story of Earth's one silent ship had only just begun.